This is the Forge Audio Network, your official source for all things Forge FC. Here's your host, Anthony Urciuoli.
Hello, Forge fans. We're back. It's the Forge Audio Network. I'm Anthony Urciuoli. This is Season in Review, Part 3 of 3. If you missed the first two, I highly recommend you catch up. You won't know what's happening in this one unless you've watched, because it's a continue. It's not. You can just watch this one if you want. But for the full effect, for the full review, I highly recommend checking out the first two. In part 1, we talked about the defensive third, the first third of the season, the middle third, where we focused on the middle, of course. And then this is the final third, the attacking third. We'll be joined by Alex Gangué-Ruzic, who is a soccer analyst with One Soccer, campl.ca, and is the guy when it comes to talking tactics and just, the intricacies of the game. And that's what we'll get into when Alex joins us very shortly. We will focus, though, on the Forge attack, the sexiest part of that group. Not just because they're all very good-looking guys, but also because this is a club that likes to attack and play on the front foot. So this is kind of the fun part of the season in review, is focusing on that Forge attack and just a review of how they performed this year, get into the tactics of it a little bit, and maybe look ahead to see what Forge is working with going into next season. Before we do that, though, let's review the final third of the season. And for that, you won't have to think back too far. In fact, you only have to think back maybe like a month or two. We will start with the first leg of the CPL semifinal. Highly anticipated matchup between two bitter rivals, Cavalry FC, Forge FC. Leg 1 went down in Calgary, October 15th. Forge, at worst, wanted to come out of this with a draw. At best, come out with a win, because it was an aggregate, right? Combined score of the first and second leg. So Forge at least wanted a draw to be able to go home in leg 2, and just all they had to do was win to advance to the final. Leg 1 didn't start the way Forge wanted. Cavalry opened the scoring. Clomp in the 42nd minute. Match went to halftime, and then Forge came out, and who else? Kyle Becker with an unbelievable delivery to Woobens Pacius to draw, or to at least tie the game at 1, and eventually the match would end up in a draw. Here's the call, though, on One Soccer. Becker's beautiful delivery and the finish from Pacius.
Clever little play as well, just plays it up to his hand, gets a free kick.
So Kyle Becker to deliver. Plenty of willing recipients if he can get the delivery right. Plenty of pace on it, and there's the response, an immediate response. And Woobens Pacius, inside the first minute of the second half, has done what they pay him to do. It's the Forge top scorer, and we are back where we started. And an immediate response at the start of the second half. Pacius with the header.
Ends in a draw. Forge now exactly where they want to be, heading home to Tim Hortons Field. October 23rd was the date, and all Forge had to do was beat Cavalry to advance. And what a match this was. The first half was just insane. David Norman for Cavalry gets a yellow card in the 25th minute. Kyle Becker gets a straight red in the 43rd minute. Norman gets a second yellow in stoppage time in the first half. I think it was on the 48th minute. So all of a sudden now both clubs go into the second half. It's evened up. Not only is it 0-0 on the scoreboard, 1-1 in aggregate, they're both playing a man down, and that really worked into Forge's favor. A club that wants the space, they want the tempo. Cavalry in this matchup, in this semifinal against Forge, in both matches, surprising to some, came out, played a little more of a defensive style, relied more on the counter. They knew Forge wanted to be aggressive, and that their defenders and their midfielders were going to want to get upfield. Cavalry looked to catch them, and it worked, at least in that first match. That's what led to Cavalry's first goal. In this one, though, more space works into Forge's favor because they want to be able to control possession. And boy, did they ever. Forge broke through. Who else? Big game Dave. David Chouanier, 69th minute, opens the scoring. Alexandre Gangué-Ruzic reported the assist. Now, those two names, you're going to want to remember those two. Chouanier with the goal. Here's the call on One Soccer.
You get a little bit more pace in behind as well. Lose a little bit of guile.
The Jabarpour, Chouanier keeps himself onside. David Chouanier! David does it again! Chouanier in the clutch! This is his MO!
It was insanity at Tim Hortons Field. I remember standing on the sideline, just taking in the atmosphere after that first goal. The bench erupted. Forge could feel it, but it wasn't over yet. There was still time to be played, a little over 20 minutes left. Forge, though, would get the insurance. Pacius would score his second goal of the semi. It was on a penalty in the 75th minute. Back to One Soccer.
Frees up some space, slips a brilliant pass back to Chouanier. His cross goes off, up for it when Pacius thought about the bike. Danger's not gone, it's Borges. Goes through the legs of Dan Clopton, goes to ground, point to the spot, penalty for Forge. One of the biggest moments of his young career, one of the biggest of Carducci's, to double it. Pacius on his right, gets it by! What a moment for Woobs!
Calvary, though, made things interesting. 78th minute, Bevan with the goal to make it 2-1. Forge cut the lead in half. Forge, though, would hang on.
It's Mason Trafford. Escalante is down and off the pitch. He got hurt in that stab. It's Camargo, though, going back the other way, looking for Bevan. It's cut out. It's cleared. Forge, again, inevitable. A fourth consecutive Canadian Premier League final.
Defender / midfielder. Alex Ashton-Janssen. A guy who was not supposed to be in that. We talked a lot about him in the first episode of the season in review when we focused on the defense. Ashton-Janssen, one of the best midfielders, holding midfielders in the Canadian Premier League, asked to step back and play center back whilst the club dealt with some injuries and some other things. Ends up playing the whole year, ends up being the most stable defender just in terms of he played, he was there. He played big minutes. He was a guy that was, he's kind of the linchpin with that defensive unit, which experienced a lot of adversity this year as a group, and injuries, played a major role for this club. But Ashton-Janssen steps back, not only performs admirably, named Defender of the Year, the league's best, not even his natural position. It was an unbelievable run for Ashton-Janssen. Here's Alex after he was named Defender of the Year.
It feels great, for sure. It's been a learning experience, and but I've had great support from everyone in the club. David Edgar and Daniel Crutzen especially has helped me a lot. Had those to lean on, so it's been great. I think that's something you need to learn when you're a professional as well. You're not deciding whether you're a midfielder or a defender. You can call yourself what you want, right? But the coach places you where he wants to place you, and you can only do your best at that position, right? So I think we've been good in Forge with having players that are good at different positions, that can play a lot of different positions, and that also makes it harder for our opponents to scout us because you never really know what to expect.
Forge, though, had their minds on other things. They were looking for their third CPL title in their fourth consecutive CPL Finals appearance, and they were off to Ottawa. And that is where we had it was my favorite storyline of the season. It was that irresistible force and the immovable object, the irresistible Forge and the immovable Atletico Ottawa, a club that prides itself on their structure, on their defense. Forge prides themselves on their defense because they were the top defensive club in the league, but the way they're able to defend so well is because of how good they are with the ball and the possession, the tempo, the passing, the movement, that ability to constantly be on the attack, whether it's even without the ball, whether they're pressing, but with the ball, they always want to be going forward. But for Ottawa, in their second year in the league, to be able to win a title against Forge, the evil empire of the CPL, which every other fan hates because they won. You want to be hated, a hated team in sports. It means you're doing something right. Ottawa, though, could not deliver. And who else would score in a final but Alexandre Gangué-Ruzic, the man who scored against Forge to dash their hopes of a three-peat the year prior at Tim Hortons Field. Now in Ottawa, wearing Forge colors, gets his club on the board. Here's that moment from One Soccer.
Two-man wall for Atletico Ottawa, the captain, Carl Howarth and Ollie Bassett. Chouanier mostly marked by Baloo Tabla. Borges does go out of the header on and in! Forge strike first, and it's Alexandre Gangué-Ruzic, a header in the final, this time for Hamilton.
What a ball that was into the box. Again, from a set play, Borges whips it in, and the header was first class.
Borges with the delivery. Gangué-Ruzic scoring a goal very similar to the one he scored to sink Forge the year before, but now he puts Forge on top. It's 1-0. Forge did not let up. This was a dominant performance from start to finish. In the second half, the exclamation point. David Chouanier. Big game, Dave. Gangué-Ruzic, Chouanier, you could not have, if you had to predict which two players on Forge were going to score in this must-win match, those two had to be near the top of your list. Chouanier does what he does, a beautiful goal. 78th minute, Matusala with the assist. Here's the call.
Dominic Samuel slides into that left back role. This is Matusala advancing, has an opening outside as a touch, another touch, brilliant, a goal, the go-ahead, dropping the hammer in the Canadian Premier League final. Who else but David Chouanier?
What a great goal that was. The confidence he has, controlling that ball, keeping it close to his feet.
And that would be your final. 2-0, Forge FC, CPL champs once again. Now, if you were able to catch the match in review, I was there on the field with my partner, Jessica Lisi, and just a reminder of how chaotic the scene was. Let me take you back to Jess and I trying to put out a match analysis on the field while the players are celebrating, and a few of them joined in as part of the match in review. Let's take you back, footage from that match and the moments right after Forge's third CPL title.
We sat near the supporters for most of the match. You thought it was a Hamilton home game, the way the crowd was.
Absolutely. I mean, this was breathtaking. It was so fun to be a part of. It was great to see the fantastic performance that they put on. And again, to have those supporters come all this way, it was a great performance, great environment to be a part of.
And we picked it up almost right away, right? Yeah. Listen, we're taking in the moment right now. We said it almost early on. It's all part of it. We could tell almost in. Do we call you Big Game Dave now? Is that the new name?
You call me whatever you want. I don't care.
How about champion? How's it feel with the emotions right now?
It's amazing. We worked all year long for that. Now we got it. I mean, we can't ask for more.
And you got to celebrate with your fans. What can you say about this crew that drove all the way from Hamilton?
It's super amazing. Look at them. They've been brilliant all season long. We needed them, and they took the role for us. They're there to cheer for us, to celebrate with us. I mean, just thank you. A big thank you to them.
Tristan, clean sheets and title. How's it feel?
Feels good. It feels good. That's number 3.
Nothing more needs to be said.
Head coach, technical director, Bobby Smirdiodis, title number 3. Maybe a silly question, but how's it feel?
Fantastic. Each one is special for its own reason. This one is special with this group, resilient group throughout the season. You know, a lot of these guys have been going non-stop for a long time now. We started way back in January. We had an excellent season. I think it's what a great way to finish on.
What's done is done. You guys are champions. Not to get too deep into the game, but scoring first, we knew it would be a big deal, and clearly it kind of paved the way for you guys, I guess we could say.
Yeah, it's an important thing. You know, Ottawa's a very good team, resilient defensive team. Scoring first on them really makes them come out of their shell a little bit. We've done an excellent job getting that goal, but I thought we were excellent throughout the whole game. You know, we controlled the game on both sides of the ball. 2 key goals. Ali at that front post. We've seen that about a year ago against us, but we're glad he's put one this year. And then the man for magical moments, David Choinière. Absolutely brilliant.
And what do you say about the group of people behind me here chanting in Section K, all that made the trip from Hamilton?
This is the growth of football culture in Canada. This is exactly what you want to see. Not only our supporters that are here and sprinkled throughout the stadium, but just the general environment here. I thought it was a fantastic day for a final. And of course, we're even happier that we've come out as champions.
Are you finally going to take a day off now that you've won a championship?
Jelani keeps on asking me for multiple days off. I told him tomorrow's off and we'll see from there.
Co-founder Bob Young, you're running out of space on the soccer trophy case here.
It's too exciting. These guys work so hard. Bobby and Costa put together such an excellent organization, and this is the result of the pursuit of excellence. It's just fun to be part of.
And how about all of these Hamilton fans that made the trip to Ottawa?
Astounding. Turns out half of Ottawa are Hamilton fans. plus we brought busloads of actual Hamilton fans.
Yes.
But yeah, no, it couldn't be more exciting for us with the support that we've had all season, particularly in the championship final. This has been fun.
It wasn't long ago this was just a vision, pro soccer league in Canada, and now look where it is. What can you say about the last 4 or 5 years?
That's the thing that, as an early stage entrepreneur, I like starting little businesses and seeing what happens. And the trick isn't the 15,000 people who are here tonight and the whatever thousands who were watching on One Soccer. It was the fact that next year there'll be 30,000, and the year after that there'll be 45,000.
It's Pacius, a championship. How does it feel?
Incredible. Again, I don't have the words to explain, but it feels incredible. Well, all these guys, you can see it. It means a lot for all of us.
You think about all the work that went in, all the ups and downs, and this is it. This is the moment.
Yeah, exactly. The day that we were fighting on the pitch with each other, today we forgot all of this and we celebrate with everyone.
Okay, now, we're all those Hamilton supporters. You saw all those fans in Section K that made the trip. What do you say to the fans that made the trip?
Vamos! He said it, but thanks to all of them. We saw they were a big crowd of Hamilton Forge. It was incredible, so a great thanks for all of them, and we love you guys.
Ali, Hoja Rapport, scoring winners in the finals. This time it's for Forge. How do you feel?
I feel great. There's nothing like playing in the final and to score again. I think I owed Forge one.
And all those fans that traveled from Hamilton, what can you say about the supporters that flooded Ottawa here?
It was crazy. I didn't realize there were going to be that many people coming from Hamilton, and Forge supporters were incredible. We heard them the whole game.
Yeah, I sounded a little different. A little more screaming, I would have said, but it was part of the moment. I mean, I made the decision to keep, the players jumping in and interrupting and all that, and even some of the post-game stuff with the players in the locker room. I kept it in there. It was raw. It was in the moment. I thought it captured it perfectly. But Forge FC, that wasn't the end though, because despite the fact that Forge, they've won 3 titles in 4 seasons. Let me remind you, the CPL's only been around for 4 years, so it's an unbelievable feat. I mean, Dynasty. I don't even know if that does it justice, because it's just. You're in a league of your own at this point when you're Forge FC. Despite the fact they've won 3 titles, they still have not won one at Tim Hortons Field, which is kind of crazy. I mean, they won the first one in Calgary against Calgary. Second one against Halifax was in the bubble. And then the third one was in Ottawa. So we had our own celebration at Tim Hortons Field. Fans were invited. Players were there, of course, coaches. And it was just a party at Tim Hortons Field as the club showed off the hardware and addressed the fans. Let's take you back to that night at Tim Hortons Field post-championship, beginning with the MC of the event, Christian Jack, who then hands over the mic to head coach and technical director Bobby Smirniotis.
Make some noise, prepare for the North Star Shield once again to be lifted by your 2022 Canadian Premier League champions, Forge FC.
We feed off of the energy of the fan base, whether it's the fans that are here each and every week, the Barton Street Battalion behind us over there making their noise. We can hear the drum everywhere we go. To everyone who's showing up for game 1 or 1 game to 10 games, it's been absolutely electric. The guys love playing here. We love playing here. And in the end of the day, we do this because it's something we love, but we also do it for all of you, the fans, the supporters, and the city of Hamilton.
Boy, I mean, you talk about a season to remember. This club's provided so much for just entertainment and I mean, accomplishments and just things to cheer about and be happy about and be proud of as a fan. And even if you weren't, a lot of new soccer fans discovering Forge and just loving the atmosphere, the sense of community. Soccer provides something very unique. Access to the players, as part of the celebration. A lot of, after the amount of times and the amount of fans that have stories of, the time that they had a drink with Kyle Becker or got an autograph from Chouanier or hung out with Borges or had a conversation with Tristan Henry. The accessibility, it's like nothing else. And the fans, players, both equally thankful for each other. And it resulted in this third title for Forge FC. We look forward to the banner being added to Tim Hortons Field next season. All right, we're not done because we have to now get even more in depth and break down this club, specifically the attack. If you want the breakdown of the defense and the midfield, you can do so wherever you get your Forge content, YouTube, via podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Forge social media channels have it as well. The official forgefc.ca website, wherever you want to get it, it is there. Now, though, we bring in Alex Gangué-Ruzic, and we talk Forge FC attack. Let's go. This was a year where a lot of players, at times it was the cost of playing on a team this deep and with such high aspirations is that your numbers might be down. You're not going to score as many goals as you would if you were playing for, not to pile on Edmonton, but in Edmonton or, a club where you're going to just get bigger responsibilities and maybe play more minutes. So Tristan Borges is one of those examples of a guy, he's led the league in scoring before. He's able to score goals. We've seen it. He's a guy that enjoys scoring a lot of goals, of course. But he took a very selfless type role this year where he wasn't the guy necessarily. And he was part of a bigger attack. And he played in a lot of, he played a number 10 role at certain points. He played on the wing. There's some versatility in his game as well. What is it about Tristan Borges that can essentially, any kind of attacking role you give him, he's able to deliver?
Yeah, and I think it's been fascinating to see Tristan Borges' growth because I still remember when he came on in that first year, he was the guy and he embraced it. Like you could tell, you'd talk to him and he just kind of, almost glow a little. He knows that he was the guy and he thrived in that responsibility. Like he was going out each game, teams were targeting him and he'd score and you just see this look in his eyes where he's just like, yeah, I'm the guy and I did that. And that, that was huge in the first year because, the first year of the league, having him and Kyle Becker, it helped Forge a lot. But then, he has his Belgium adventure. You go to a league where you go to, a team where, okay, maybe you're not that guy. You're a new guy in a team. And then he comes back to Forge and, last year the team's a lot deeper and maybe you realize, okay, I'm not that guy. You don't need to be that guy. There's other guys who have stepped up and maybe it was a bit of an adjustment in terms of, okay, if you're going to be that guy in terms of that personality, you're going to be a guy who's playing a lot of minutes. You're going to be getting a lot of the ball, as we saw with Forge, a deeper team, a lot of attacking threats. You need to get David Choinière touches, say, as an example. You need to get Woobens Pasillas touches. In the first year, Tristan Borges was going to get his touches, and that worked. Whereas now, you can't be letting some of those other guys get cold. There's a bit of an adjustment period. But what I like now is that, he embraced it, like you mentioned, being that team guy. For him, it was, okay, as long as I'm doing my part, I'm perfectly fine with that. And, he was comfortable in that. He was happy. You can tell that he was playing with the sort of freedom, because sometimes you can see it in players. They maybe get a little frustrated when they didn't get the ball. There wasn't that at all this year from him. And I think that's what's key, because he's a very talented player. There's no doubt about that. But the way he embraced the role, and you look in the final, say, where, again, he might have not gotten as many touches as he would have liked, but one of them's an assist. He knew when to step up in those moments and deliver that. And I think that's sort of maturity as an attacker, is knowing that in some teams you might get 10 touches a game at the top level. But if you can turn half of those touches into good chances, you're not wasteful with those touches, that can be just as important. I think he learned that and showed that in big moments this year.
Yeah, I mean, I've had situations where, the team he was on during training got scored on, and he was a little grumpy after, and I was trying to talk to him. He wants to win at all times, and that showed, and that's where that kind of that selflessness comes out, when, a guy just wants to get 3 points whenever it's available. Choinière, we've become used to it by now. He's going to score big goals. He's going to end up on a highlight reel every now and then as well. One of the guys that's not currently under contract with Forge for next season, we'll see where he goes. But whatever happens, the service, I guess, he put in for Forge FC over these 4 years, I mean, it's hard to say anything, but it was just spectacular.
He loves the big moments, and you can't teach that. Ultimately, you can't teach that. And it was just remarkable to see how cool he gets. Like, he get the ball in the box, and it's a final. And some players, you can almost, they'll never say they're nervous, but you could see it. You could see almost them shaking or hesitating. With David Choinière, that's just never there. And I think that sort of, desire to play in the big game, that real want to win, it's huge, because that in the big moments, he gets his one chance, he's going to deliver. Because, big games are cagey. Finals are cagey. You might not get the touches you want. If you do, you're not getting it in your preferred areas. Maybe in game 5 of the season, you're getting the ball in the box, you're getting your chance. Game 35, you're playing a team that's well drilled. Say, like in the Ottawa game, you're playing one of the best defensive teams in the league. You're playing a team that won't give you any space. So it's going to be tough. And it was tough throughout the game, but he kept at it. And that's what I love about his goal. I think that goal really personifies David Choinière, is that he got the ball in a tough situation. He's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to make my chance. And then when he got it to his area, his preferred spot, the one he said, Bobby Smirnoff said he never misses in training. He didn't miss. No. And that's the thing that differentiates. The best players, all these players at this level, they all have it, their skills. Like, all the best strikers at this level, when you put it in their preferred spot, they're scoring. But the difference is, in the big games, those guys go in the preferred spots, they still score. And David Choinière is that kind of guy where, you put him in his spot, he's going to deliver, and you can't teach that.
In terms of strikers, it'll be interesting next season, because there's some big names still under contract for next season. Taran Campbell, Jordan Hamilton, Woobens Pasillas, 3 guys that could start for almost any other team in this league. So it's a bit of a log jam, but with those 3 guys, and you get something a little different with each, right? Campbell, he played wing at different times, so he can play in multiple forward positions. They like his work rate, they like his runs, and the stuff he can do off the ball as well. So let's maybe start with Pasillas, who had a breakout year this year and still very young. What does the future look like for a guy like Pasillas if he just keeps on this trajectory?
Yeah, certainly he's someone, if you're looking across the CPL, he's someone who'd be primed for maybe a move upwards soon enough. And I think he's shown a lot of growth in his game for a young striker. I think, he's got a lot of tools that you'd like, in terms of, okay, he's cool and calm in front of goal. He finishes. He's one of those other guys we talk about who loves the big games. He scored a lot of big game goals already for Forge in just 1.5 seasons. But then he's matured a lot in his other areas of the game, which is huge, because striker is obviously a position judged on goals, but I think the difference between the good and the best strikers, it's also the little things you can do to affect play. Because the one thing about strikers that you learn, you're not going to get your perfect touches every game. You know, it's just a game where you're ultimately dependent on others for service. So those who really are the best are those who can stay involved, who can hold up the ball, who can create service from themselves, and maybe they're not just sitting there in the box dependent on like one game they'll get their chances and score, and the other game they're a non-factor. And I think he did a great job, and this is tough for a lot of young strikers to realize, because at the younger levels they'll dominate because they're maybe more physical or faster than the others. When you go up to the pro game, you don't have those advantages, but Pasillas did a great job of staying engaged in games. Even you look at games where he wasn't getting those chances in the box, he stayed involved. And I think because of that, he's got a very high ceiling, and I think he's someone that if he stays, he can certainly continue to score a lot of goals, but if not, he could be very primed to make a jump up to a different level.
Yeah, and a guy that benefited from playing, on the same club with Emery Welshman and Hamilton and Campbell, who are a little older. I mean, Campbell's still pretty young. He's in his early 20s as well. I remember when I saw Campbell for the first time, I mean, he's a big guy. Like, he's thick, he's wide. He looks like a guy that would be a handful to try and defend. Again, maybe he didn't score as many goals as he would have liked, but as has been the theme here, sometimes you have to sacrifice some of the stats for the greater good, if you want to call it that. So Campbell now, with his age, he's still under contract next year. Is this a guy that we could see eventually being, the leading scorer in this league? Which, again, by the way, he's been there before, but with Forge, under Bobby Smirniotis in that role.
I mean, I think the potential's certainly there for that. We've seen it at Pacific, that when he gets in a groove and when he's feeling it himself and he's getting in those positions, he can be so dangerous. I think, again, what's so fascinating about his strong runs at Pacific, the first year was more as a number 9, but then in his third year was more on the wing, which is fascinating, that he could find those pockets and create, because he has a lethal shot. He can read himself well into the box. So yeah, I think absolutely, if he can get a run at the number 9 and really figure out, okay, what he needs to do at the number 9. What I've found with Campbell is that he's very, he's adaptable. You just need maybe to give him a bit of a run and figure out, okay, if I'm playing number 9 and I'm playing with these guys, this is how I need to play. Okay, if I'm here, I just need to be a focal point, or I need to be making runs, or I need to be playing with the ball at his feet. He kind of likes to read those plays. So I think if with Forge, maybe it might take a few games to get used to. And I think that's one thing that maybe hurt him, in a sense that on a team like Forge, when you have so much depth, that, okay, you have an Emery Welshman, you have, Woobens Pasillas, you have Jordan Hamilton, you have these guys who are itching and fighting to get minutes. You might not get those few games to get that run you need to really get going. But I think he's one of those guys that he's always been, once he gets going, he can really get hot. Like, that's the scary thing about his goal scoring records, is they've come in very impressive bunches where he'll score like 5 to 10 goals and over a 2-3 month span. You're like, okay, he's hot. Like, he's going to go out in the field and score. And I think once he gets in that groove with the Forge, he could get hot, especially if some of those midfielders, some of those talented wingers give him the service he can thrive on.
Yeah, and we've mentioned Jordan Hamilton, a guy that's been the guy on so many teams, and he scored so many big goals at high levels. And he comes to Forge, and he's playing more of a backup role for Forge FC, which it can't be easy, but he had the right attitude the whole time. I mean, he was a team guy, a guy always smiling, happy, getting, really, I mean, he knew a lot of these players before even coming to Hamilton anyway. So he already had that relationship. He was already familiar with Bobby Smirniotis. And I mean, Hamilton did what he was asked to do. Is he a guy that we could see maybe benefiting from, a preseason training camp with a club and then getting into a season and kind of being a little more comfortable in that setting?
100%. I think he's someone that maybe you could earmark as someone to watch next year, especially because, if someone like Pasillas ends up getting a look elsewhere, I'm sure he'd move on. Maybe, maybe even Taron Campbell gets a look elsewhere. All of a sudden, Jordan Hamilton's your number 1 guy heading into next year. You're fine with that, because I think it's going to be good in terms of, for him, just to get a regular preseason. One thing that's, been with Hamilton's career post TFC is that there's been a lot of bouncing around.
Right.
He headed to Columbus, where he won MLS Cup, but he wasn't playing much. Then he headed over to Europe for a bit. And then he comes back in the middle of a season, which is always tough, especially on a team like Forge, where you have Pasillas in good form, you have Campbell, Still had 5 or 6 goals at the time. You got Emery Welshman, who's always been a reliable, servant up front for Forge. It's going to be tough to break into that. So I think for him, absolutely, if he gets a chance to be, on that same fitness level as his teammates and get that fresh preseason and get a few goals in him, he could be someone that you look for next year, maybe especially with some outgoing names in the front line where he can step up and show that. With his signing, based on the forward depth, it was always felt like a signing like, okay, this is maybe an eye on 2023. Like if he goes out and scores any goals in 2022, great. But given the depth that Forge had up front, this was always with an eye on the future. And I think that's what's scary because he's a talented player. And I think if he can get his feet up and running and fit the system, even if a Pasillas leaves, that's a very more than capable replacement and one that brings, a lot to be excited about.
Alex Gangué-Ruzic. It's been a pleasure all year. It's been a pleasure now. I always enjoy talking to you. And my only hope is that in a few months, we are back in the same spots and we're chatting CPL some more. There you have it. The review is complete. It took 3 parts. It could have, there was so much. It could have been a 20-parter, but we stuck with 3 and we hope you enjoyed it. This isn't just because it's the end of the season. It doesn't mean we're done here because Forge content is dropping all the time. Now, in fact, we have a series. The Together We Forge series. James Hutton, our Forge fan in Qatar, taking in the World Cup, enjoying Canada and the national team. And he's giving us some insight on what's going on in Qatar and what it's like. What is it like visiting Qatar to watch the World Cup? James fills us in. You can catch up on those episodes as well. And more will come right up until the end of the tournament. Forge fans, Forge faithful, it's been a blast. We will absolutely talk to you again. I cannot wait. Stay tuned. We'll talk to you soon.
The Forge Audio Network with Anthony Urciuoli. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.